Hi folks, and welcome to the last of the Hammer Horror Dracula reviews that I'm going to do today. I'm going to have a couple more reviews tomorrow onwards, but I've done a lot of work today on videos and I've got a lot of other stuff to do, so today's the last review that I'm going to be having. And it's at number 4 that we've reached on this list. And my number 4 pick, possibly slightly controversial to some, because I'm sure this is some people's number 1. Certainly this is, I think, one of the, if not the most famous of all the films. It's 1966's Dracula, Prince of Darkness, that I have at number 4. So this one saw the return of Christopher Lee. Unfortunately, Peter Cushing decided he didn't want to come back for this one after doing Brides of Dracula, which is a bit of a shame. And it's also the longest period between films. There was a 6-year gap between that film and this. There wasn't a length equivalent to this in any of the other Hammer Dracula films. So it's quite a long time to not have had a Dracula movie. But Prince of Darkness is a really important film for a lot of ways. It's, I think, the very last of the Dracula films filmed at Bray Studios, and it's the last one of them that had the classic, iconic look to it. In fact, it's one of the last of the Hammer films to have that really just gorgeous look. There was something that got lost when they went to Pinewood. I don't know what it is, but they just lost something. Obviously, when they went to the 70s and the budget started going down and down and down, the films just completely lost that same aesthetic. But this one still looks like a gothic fairy tale. It has wonderful costumes, wonderful period detail. Everything just looks immaculately expensive and well produced, and it's just a gorgeous looking film. It's also infamous in a sense that this one features Christopher Lee without any dialogue at all. Now, he claimed that the dialogue was terrible. I think it's Jimmy who wrote it claimed there was no dialogue. It's hard to say who's right and wrong here over the passage of time, etc. But there doesn't appear to be any scenes in which people address Dracula directly and would wait for a response. Nor does there seem to be any bizarre editing going on. So I am under the assumption that there actually isn't any dialogue here for Christopher Lee to say, which is what the scriptwriter said. I'm not trying to form an argument with the Lee household, but it just, if Lee had had dialogue and refused to say it, it would have meant everything had to be rewritten into the script. Possibly, maybe, I don't know. It just feels like there was no dialogue to begin with. But I don't know what the original draft was. Maybe there was dialogue and it was terrible. Lee refused to say it and they rewrote everybody else's script as well. I just assume because of the production times of these films that they might not have had time to do that, but what do I know? Anyway, the first half of this film doesn't feature Dracula at all. It's not until 48 minutes into the movie that we actually get Dracula, but there is a prevailing sense of dread about him. Something I mentioned in my last review is that the less Dracula's in a film, the more impactful for some reason he becomes. And here, although there's no Dracula in the first half, his essence is carried on through the film. The actual resurrection scene here, I think, is arguably the very, very best of all the Dracula films. It's, the way a body's hoisted up and his throat slit and that blood brings Dracula back to life. It's just really macabre. And despite the fact that the actual throat slitting's kind of off screen, the sound of it and the image of the blood pouring, which is on screen, is more visceral in a way. It's just a very vivid scene. As is the scene where Dracula slices his own chest open. It's both incredibly symbolic and sensual, and yeah, it's pushing boundaries. It really was. I think Christopher Lee here, snarling away, looks great. He's very menacing and very creepy and eerie, and it shows how strong a character Christopher Lee was, that he manages to convey emotion and character without uttering a single word. There's something animalistic and evil about it. This Dracula isn't a courteous host. This Dracula is just a vicious machine. And the only other film that had that sort of savagery was the last one that I reviewed, Scars of Dracula. But because he's in this less and he doesn't talk, he's far more creepy here. He's far more menacing, and he just looks great. I think that the characters here are all really good as well. I've forgotten the name of them. Was it Margaret, the girl who's the sister-in-law to our main hero. The way she goes from sort of downtrodden female character to seductive vampiress is really, really impressive. She was just really good in it, as is the main female lead. She's a genuinely, although she does the same dopey thing twice, where she believes that Dracula, she believes what somebody, a stranger, says to her, basically follows them around. She's got a decent on-screen presence. The main hero, again, apologies, I forgot his name. He was the voice of Captain Scarlet in the TV series. And I think he's a really charismatic and likable main hero. And I like the fact that it's him, the female lead, and is it Paul Keir, who's the priest here, who went on to play Quatermass in the Pit. He's got a really, really great. Is it Paul Keir or Richard Keir? One of the two. He's got a really great presence. So you've got those three are all ultimately responsible for bringing Dracula down. And I like the fact that there's not one main character here who's effectively in charge of the lead. You've got a number of strong-willed characters all acting together that ultimately save the day. And that's something different to any of the other Hammer Draculas. Also, when you've got a female character who's ultimately, she fires the first shot onto the ice and is what's ultimately responsible for bringing Dracula down. I think it's the only case where a female character in one of these films, which depict women in the 1800s being seen as lesser in some ways, although it's not trying to be derogatory, but it is true to the time. We've got a female character who's, bringing the death of Dracula. I just like that. I think it's good. I think it's empowerment. Like I said, the film is actually quite slow, and it does sag in the middle half. And I thought that the idea of the sort of, it's almost like they've tried to introduce another character from Dracula legend, from the stories, into the last part. You'll know who it is, the old crazy guy who's very clearly trying to be a Renfield character, eating flies and whatnot. His character's dithery, but ultimately sort of showcases how easy it is to get Dracula into these places, because Dracula's powers are just mesmerising. Don't know how he knows who Dracula is, because it was never explained, but he's in there. Well, I just think this is a really well shot, really well filmed, really lavish film. Some people will find it a bit slow, because it is. It doesn't have the pace of the original. It doesn't quite have the supreme charm and elegance of the second one, Rise of Dracula, and it's not as visceral as something like Scars of Dracula. But it is a film that brought back Christopher Lee in a really important role for him, and I think is beloved by many people because it's just a very atmospheric film. It's a really good movie to watch at night, and it was, like I say, it's the last of the Draculas at Bray Studios, which plays a big part in how it looks and feels. Castles at night in the rain, and the whole thing's great. The ending of this one gets criticised a lot because some people don't like it. I don't mind it. I mean, most of these Dracula endings aren't great, but then a lot of horror films don't have good endings. This one is all a bit convenient. Dracula's coffin falls onto the ice, he gets up, they shoot bullet holes into the ice. Excuse me, and he drowns. But it is what it is. It's not awful. It's fine. I think this is a really good film. Whereas I, whereas I thought that Scars of Dracula and Dracula's Risen from the Grave are both solid, I'd give them both 3 out of 5. I think they're solid films. This is an absolute 3.5. It's a very good movie, bordering on great if it wasn't a bit saggy in the middle. And I could have done with more Dracula, a bit more action. That would have elevated it. But really, it's only for number 4 on this list, which is no shame to be, because the other 4 films on this list, the other 3 films on this list, rather, I just see as absolutely fantastic. I genuinely love the other 3 films on this list, but this is still a very good, bordering on great film for Hammer, and it's a really important one. And just because it's at number 4 does not diminish the fact that it is a really solid film. I can totally understand why people put this at number 1, certainly at number 2 in most people's lists. It's literally personal preference why the other 3 One of them probably quite controversially why it falls into my top three, but this is, yeah, really, really good. This is probably the one film that most, excuse me, I'd say non-Hammer Dracula fans would know the best, because I think this has been televised more than the others, and this one's been promoted more, and this one's in, the box set, and in the smaller box set. This is one appears more. This is the one that they did in the omnibus editions. They told the story of this one, so this is definitely one of the most popular of the Dracula films. I totally understand why, and it's easily one of the better ones as well. It's just subjective taste as to why I think the other three are films I prefer, but this is still a really, really good, bordering on great film. Definitely a step above all the other films I've talked about, and well worth its place.